Alright, so today we're gonna change out the stock trailing arms for our ORB high clearance trailing arms. Pretty short tool list. Need a Torx T25. That takes the brake line off, and you'll need an 18mm, a 15mm, and not displayed, you need a 10mm to on the newer stuff to take the little brake line holder off near the brake line or near the brake caliper. So on the old models, an 18mm will remove your radius, or I mean, an old model, the 15mm will remove your radius rods, and on the newer models, it'll be an 18mm. This was a change in mid 2017 on 1Ks and all turbos. 17 and up have the larger radius bolts, and all the newer stuff, 18, 19, has 18mm. So we'll go ahead and we'll start out. We'll grab the 15. We're gonna pop the sway bar loose. We'll do this on both sides. Just a rule of thumb, because ours are high clearance, you will get a little different. So when you do the sway bar, I would recommend pulling this off out of the way, doing both sides, doing this side and the other side, installing both trailing arms, and then installing your radius rod, because there is a little difference in the way they sit because of the high clearance. As always, I put my bolts back in so I don't have to look for them. So we'll go ahead and pop that out. Then we'll grab a 18. Take the shock loose. I'm just taking the shock off so that I can get this brake line out of my way without having to fight it. You can just let it hang down. The axle will hold it. I mean, I would let it down. I wouldn't throw it down. Put the bolt back in there. Grab our rope so that I can get that shock out of my vision. So we'll take, and my big hook here won't fit on the place I normally put my little holder. Hook this up out of the way. Get that around where I can. This is just literally, like I said, to get it out of my face so I can work. This isn't, anything critical, just for a vision.
It's the ease of disturbing or getting this out of the way.
All right,
if you don't have one of those accessible,
use a bungee cord, or you can take the whole shock off.
Yep.
So on the newer stuff, it has this little brake line retainer. Like I said, these are 10mm bolts. They're not nuts on the bottom side. Take that off, get it out of the way. And then we're gonna go through, grab our T25. We're gonna take all the brake line clips out. There is, 4 of them. And got those out of the way. Our trailer arms do come with hardware for those. These are a 1/4 20. So after that, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pop the radius rod loose. So we'll take the 18 again on this one. Like I said, older models, this will be the 15. This one has the bolts in from the other way, so I'm gonna have to remove the brake caliper. A lot of times these bolts are put in from this side, and you'll be able to actually do all this and leave this caliper on there. But this one, not the case. So I'm just gonna pop them loose. I'm gonna get them loose, and then I'll pull that caliper off. Alrighty, the caliper should be a 15. To get those caliper bolts out. Yep, they're gonna be a pain. So whoever put this together really just makes the job a lot harder, because when you put the bolts in the other way, like I said, you don't have to even remove this brake, and whenever it's at full drop, the bolt's close to the radius rod. So since we already got the shock off, I can lift it up to get down on the bolt. Might have to use it by hand. Great big impact won't fit. Yep, I'm gonna have to get a wrench. So this is probably one of the first ones I've done where that was actually in there the wrong way, I must say. So something that Polaris has either changed or somebody changed. we will definitely install it the other way. Just in case we have any issues in the future. That way, especially, you know, these are stock radius rods, so they're not even high clearance. If you have a high clearance rod, you're gonna take the whole radius rod off the other end to be able to get this end apart. Just not a good plan. So we'll take the brake, we'll set it over here out of the way. First, so we don't lose it, I'm gonna take and put these bolts back in there until where we can swap it around. Well, like I said, we'll leave this over here out of the way. Then we'll pop this radius rod loose. And we'll pop the upper radius rod loose. Drop that down. Get that out of the way. Put all these bolts back in stuff so we don't lose it or look for it. They are the same, top and bottom. Alright, so here's a tricky little part. A lot of people think that you have to remove the axle nut and take this whole hub apart, and you don't. This is a little trick we do. You can actually get to all the bolts and then pull the hub off the trailing arm and leave it on the axle, so you don't have to reset your bearing and you don't have to deal with this big nut on the hub itself. We'll grab the 15 wrench. There's 4 bolts around this. Some of them you can get to from the back and some from the front. Start with this top one. Drop the one. Okay. When you're going this direction, like I said, you got to make sure that none of the bolts actually get sticking out when we go to move it. So we're not going to fully remove those bolts, we're just going to actually loosen them up. So one thing that we may have to change here is put it in neutral so that we can turn it. Obviously I just did that on the side of the transmission because it's sitting where it is.
Who got time to go inside the cab?
Yeah. Assuming that's park, reverse, neutral. We'll see. Is that neutral? So it's not turning. There it is. Wasn't in neutral. All right, we're good. Got that lined up. You can let go of it. Last one I can get to from the back side. All right, so here's the part where I say you got to watch the bolts. And there's nothing wrong with actually taking this nut off and pulling the hub apart and, you know, taking all the bolts out with this apart. We just like to do it this way. I think it saves a little time and you don't have to mess with setting the bearing, like I said. So once you get all that loose, all the nuts off the back side, you can take and just pick up on it, slide it out, and then you can peel it away, and then boom. So the only thing is you gotta make sure that none of these fall out if they're not lined up with the rotor. And if they do, just make sure to pick them up. So, as with everything, we'll put all the nuts back on. I did have one fall out, so I will take and stick it back in there. Alright, so now the only thing left in removal, we have the 18mm wrench. We'll take the main bolt off the front. And that'll be task complete on removal. Pick up on this, pull that out. These spacers will fall out, so if you're going to sell them or something, definitely make sure to keep up with it. Bolt back in it, and we got the factory unit off. Next part would be installing the ORB. Alright, so we're going to go start on the reinstall of the ORB trailing arms. This Heim joint here on all our trailing arm actually just goes all the way in. So I've already tightened it down so it goes all the way in tight and then just parallel with this angle, you know, just straight up and down with the top of the trailing arm, which is where all the tabs are. So we'll take it and go stick it on. It's pretty heavy, so sometimes it's a two-man job, but you know, managed by yourself, great. Should have this nut off there. Get that lined up. Get that through there. Alright, on the reinstall, I'm gonna let it down. On the reinstall, I definitely go a little different order. After I get the front of it mounted, I generally mount the shock back on there. By doing this, it holds it up, so I don't have to try to hold it up. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the shock down. Get it down just kind of hanging. Get this out of the way so we can see what we're doing. Sway bar. Alright, so go ahead and get the shock hanging free. That way I can pick this up, get it started in there. This can be a little bit tedious by yourself because it's so heavy. And it all moves around and fights you. Just the good fun of installing it by yourself.
But it is doable.
Yeah, it's just
One-man job. It can be a one-man job, but having two people on it definitely speeds it up.
Alright, so once we get that on there, since we've already got that installed, I'm going to go ahead and grab my 18 and tighten up the front main mounting bolt and this trailing arm bolt, shock bolt. Get that tight. Get that tight. Like I said, the nut on the front of the trailing arm is already tight and it always goes all the way in. So once I've got that installed,
That nut.
yeah, already tight. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this all back together. Like I said, you can take all this apart if that's what you feel is best, but it's not the way we do it. I'm not saying that we do it the best way, it's just not the way we do it. So go through, take the 4 bolts off this, 4 nuts off. Oh, don't leave it. Bad part about putting all your bolts together is you're gonna take them all back apart. But at least you don't have to look for them. So, pick this up, turn that hub, get the bolt pattern lined up, all 4, boom. Due to the shape of our trailing arm, it's actually a little easier to get to the back side of these. Get that started. Get the next one started. Get the lower one sorted. I've got the other side apart, so it makes turning this a little hard.
I can get the other side of
That's
this
fine. I got it in there.
Okay.
And the one that keeps wanting to come all the way out started. Grab my 15. Actually, the way that ours is shaped, you can get to all 4 of them from the back side. Tighten that one up. Tighten that one up. Down to it. Alright, so once we got all 4 of those tight, we're going to go ahead and put our brake back on. So it's a little different than taking it apart. We're going to route this brake line through here, but first, go ahead and get this put on. The reason I'm going ahead and putting this back on is, like I said, from versus where we took it off, I'm actually going to put the radius rod bolts in the other way so that you don't even have to deal with this in the future.
Got them coming in.
Yes,
That way.
we're going to switch them back. We're coming in from the front, which is how a lot of the older ones used to be, I do believe. Also a 15. So once we get that on there, we're going to leave this loose until after we get our radius rods back on there. So like I said, we're going to go ahead and put this on. Come in from the top, leave that loose, that way we ain't got to fight it. And like I said, this come out like this, and when we put it, which obviously you have to remove this caliper to get it out. Put it back together like this, that way if you ever have to change your radius rods, you don't have to remove your brake, which can be especially a pain whenever you have high clearance radius rods, because you can't get to the lower bolt. Same thing, process on the bottom. We're also going to put it in backwards, which it really don't matter because you can get it out either way. So we just like all our bolts to be the same way. Get that in there. All right. On our trailing arms, it comes with hardware. This is a 1/4 bolt, which is a 7/16 socket. Run that under there. Like, get this routed to where it doesn't set right on top of that. Then we'll actually run it through the sway bar mount. These clamps can be a little bit of a pain. You will end up with an extra one. I'll just take and remove it usually. You have a lot of brake line rolled up, especially on this driver's side here. Get that moved out of the way. Try to loosen this up a little so we can move it. Sometimes these are actually like glued on there, so they can be an extra pain. There we go. Make sure it's got a little slack back here. Keep it tight down through the middle. Get that one started.
Slack, have some slack back here.
Yeah, just to clear the radius rod. And we'll grab 7/16. Might have to grab a wrench actually. Some of these you can get around, some you can't. I like to keep it tucked in nice right here, and I usually turn that clamp sideways a little bit. That way the brake line stays up on top of the trailing arm. Don't get it close to your tire. Then we just tighten these clamps down.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, that's right. Let's see if I can get it on that one. No, nope, I got it on there. So get that where it don't hit the wheel and it clears that radius rod. Another little thing is like right now these are staying good and solid. It ain't wanting to move. If it does still want to move around after, just take a hammer, smack it down a little bit. It'll keep it from moving. And go ahead and tighten up these last 2 bolts.
1 and 2.
Stick the tire back on there. And that's pretty much it. Oh, wow. Got the good old sway bar. Oh, I hit the hole on that. Just stick the sway bar back on there. Like I said, I would do these. I would install both trailing arms and then install the sway bar. That just makes it easier.
In this process, we're only doing one side.
Yeah,
We would leave both the sway bars off until the end if you're doing both.
yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do that just to make it easier because it's hanging on the other side. But
Okay.
that's pretty simple. I mean, just put the sway bar back on there after you get everything else done.